let's go around. I want everybody to weigh in. What is your interpretation, briefly, what is your interpretation of President Trump's the announcement today by his press secretary that he's basically taking 2 weeks to think it over and engage in conversations with the Iranians? Mercedes, you first, please.
Well, I'm really trying to log into International Intrigue right now, but they're asking me like 100 questions, Mark, so I'm going to get through them first. But to answer your question, because I can multitask as a mother of five, I think that, I think in understanding President Trump, the way he functions, the way I have seen him firsthand function is to basically keep this element of surprise, right? It's this kind of psychological warfare that he's playing, where he's basically telling the Ayatollah, look, I know exactly where you are. You're an easy target. But he really, really wants to hone in and see if there's any possibility of negotiations with Iran. He does not want to go into this war. I'm telling you. He's criticized George W. Bush with the Iraq war. His goal, ever since I worked with him in the first term and even in his first presidential campaign, was very much one of how do we end these wars? And so this idea that it is not a comfortable place for Donald Trump to want to go into a war. So if he's going to go in, it's because he knows that it has to be 100% successful and that it's got to be very short. He not anything that can be prolonged in any way. And I just want to add, so if they focus in on the Fordow nuclear facility and make that their main target, and then say, look, Israel, this is as far as we're going to go, and we're going to assist you, but we don't want to be their part, like at the same level of where Israel's at in terms of Israel's, basically moving forward aggressively, knowing that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon and let Israel be the lead and the U.S. in a supportive role. I think President Trump can be comfortable with that, but I don't think President Trump wants to be in this kind of equal footing with Israel when it comes to, bombing the nuclear facility and then going into the next thing and then figuring out what the regime change is going to look like. That's where I think that's why you're seeing, I think, this very calculated and paused motion coming from President Trump right now.
Helen, what's your view of the pause, please?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Mercedes. I mean, first of all, congrats, 5 kids. Wow, and multitasking. It's very impressive. I think, look, she's exactly right. I think President Trump knows that U.S. involvement would be the trump card in this case. I think Israel's fight with Iran is an existential one for them. And for them, there's a lot more riding on it than there is for the U.S. And so as much as possible, U.S. is going to deploy their weapons strategically, their military presence around the region strategically, and pressure Iran to come to the table. I mean, really, Iran has kind of been defanged. Everyone loves saying that word, but really they've been decapitated militarily around the region. They've lost all their Shiite proxies. They don't have a good way out of this. And I think Khamenei has really been shown that his military strength are not as strong as he claims them to be. So in some ways, Iran is cornered. And I think President Trump knows that.
Jeremy,
baby, what do you guys reckon?
Yeah, I mean, another way I would think about this is that the president's second presidency has brought together an interesting mix of factions across US politics and across US foreign policy. 2 of those factions, one you call isolationists. That's like people who say, we are tired of foreign entanglements. We just want to pull up the drawbridge. Another faction you call primacists, very much like America on top, America first. And those 2 factions are kind of in conflict right now. If we're isolationists, we say, we don't really care what happens over there. We just don't want to get involved. If we're primacists, we say, well, we don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon and we're going to use all our power to stop that. So the president, he's sort of said things along both of those 2 lines. They're in conflict right now. And I think a couple of weeks gives him time to figure out a way that enables him to keep both, sides of his own approach in check and his own factions in check. Yeah, that's just one way that he might be thinking about it.
Yeah. John John McCain used to say, everything's been said, but not everybody's had a chance to say it. But I'm confident you have something different to say.
Well, at least I'm sure you covered the 2016 race pretty closely, Mark. And I'm reminded of that comment. I think it was a 2016 race. It must have been when Trump said that he was sick of American foreign policy announcing what they're going to do before they do it and having, weeks lead up about what we're going to attack. Right. And I think that still sticks with Trump, right? He loves being unpredictable. He loves the idea of, well, maybe, you better play your cards right or I'll kind of, I've got all options on the table and I'm not going to tell you what they are. I agree completely with Mercedes. I think that Trump does not want to go in. I think he wants 2 weeks for Israel to finish what it considers its business, which, that's also a bit of I'm not sure what they think they're doing there too. I mean, you see obviously the nuclear attacks, but today the defense minister said that the Ayatollah can't live now that the hospital was attacked in Israel overnight. So there's a little bit of mission creep going on the Israeli side. And I think President Trump probably pretty sensibly goes, oh boy, let's just buy ourselves some time here before we commit to anything. And hopefully in the 2 weeks, from his perspective, from America's perspective, but from everyone's perspective, in the 2 weeks, it kind of resolves itself. But yeah, that's what I see going on.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.